This is the Maher Regime. The Maher Regime is a product of CAM Publications, and I am PAM Publications, so I guess that makes me a capitalist. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. Is this a
business.
is it a non-profit, or what is it?
No, it's not non-profit. It's
Well,
just
then
all
you
business.
are you filthy capitalist.
It's all business. I'm a capitalist.
You're trying
and I'm
to-
a Republican.
That's why you're a capitalist. How dare you attempt to make money and do things that help the economy? How dare you?
I know, and yeah. So I'm proud to say that. And on today's show, we have Representative Gary Hopper here, and Bill Gordon, who's been in the Public Service Department for many years in Goffstown. So these are good friends of mine. I'm glad that they're here to talk about the things we're going to talk about, and that's some bills that Gary's been giving to the House, and he was at the State House today, and one of his bills went through. Do you want to talk about that, Gary?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Cheryl, for having me.
Gary, I'm sorry, can you just
Yes.
pull your mic closer?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Is that good?
Yeah, great, thank
Okay,
you.
thanks.
Just want to make sure everybody can hear you.
Yeah, for many years, I was a co-sponsor in my freshman year in 2000, and since then I've introduced every couple of years a bill to eliminate affirmative action in New Hampshire. Technically, the university systems in New Hampshire say they do not have affirmative action, but then every 2 years when I introduce the legislation, they come into the committee and say, we do not have affirmative action, there is no need for this bill. So you have to ask, why are they fighting it? There is no need for this legislation, and then they go through this huge diatribe of how they managed to incorporate a 12% integration number in the university systems in their hiring practices, which is kind of contradicts what they just said, but they don't seem to see any kind of contradiction whatsoever.
So just to be clear, it's affirmative action without calling it that, basically?
It's affirmative action without calling
It's a quota.
It's a pretty much.
Yeah, okay.
So
I just want to stop you right there. One of the reasons I want to be here doing this is to educate people on how the government works in our state.
Or doesn't.
Or doesn't work, however you want to say that. So what I want you to be more specific. When you put something in the committee, what is the committee? So our viewers can see what is all this about, because we are at a war here in New Hampshire. And I just think that the public needs to be educated on how this works.
all right.
Because I don't think they are. According to the education department, the kids are not really getting how government works.
Okay. Well, I'm highly educated, so I'll explain.
Okay, yeah.
The way this works is your New Hampshire, I don't know which way I'm supposed to look, so I'll look up at the ceiling. The way
Right there.
right there. The way your legislature works is any state representative and or senator can introduce any piece of legislation they would like. What they do, which is what I did today, for instance, is I go down to legislative services in the State House.
Okay, what is that?
It's a bunch of lawyers that sit around an air-conditioned office and they take an idea from a legislator, and then they write it into or find out where in the
how
law.
many of these lawyers are there doing this?
I think 8.
8.
plus.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good gig.
Okay.
And no, they're actually very nice and competent, and they do have their work cut out for them, especially this time of year when we've had a 2-week window to introduce legislation, and today was the deadline. So you go, like for instance, this eliminating affirmative action. I would present it to the legislative services. They would find out where in the RSAs, where in the law
Okay.
that is and how to, accommodate that idea. From there, a legislator or a representative or senator would go around getting co-sponsors, which is our other state representatives and or senators, to sign off, which gives the impression that there is support for the idea. At that point, it gets written. A legislator at a certain date will sign off on it to say, yep, this is what I want. And then it goes to a committee. And what the folks at home really need to understand is that's where all the work's done. People think it's a big deal when it gets to the House floor and there's a vote. But typically, on most legislation, the decision has already been made. By virtue of the fact that the committee has already looked at the pluses and the minuses, the pros, the cons. They've had hours of testimony on the specific legislation. So if they go to the full House with, say, a 15-2 recommendation of ought to pass or inexpedient to legislate, which are the two recommendations, or two of the recommendations a committee can have, it's a foregone conclusion that the House is going to vote that way.
So
except in rare cases.
With this bill, what committee saw the bill?
Oh gosh, thanks a lot. I'd have to look it up.
You have to look it up.
I forget what the name is. I know Carol McGuire is the
because
the
there's all
chairman,
kinds of
but
different committees up there.
Yes,
Is that right?
yes.
And you sit on a committee.
I'm chairman of Fish and Game Committee.
Okay.
How many committees are there?
Yeah.
I mean, is it a lot?
It's more than I can count without taking off my shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm not sure. I couldn't answer that without looking.
But it's a lot.
It's a lot.
And these are all public servants on the committee?
These are all state representatives making $100 per year.
Okay. Okay.
That's who sits
But
on
that's
the
what
committee.
that's what I wanted to know.
That's the only
and
people
even
that-
the lawyers that you bring it to help you look up the RSAs, are those 8 people paid? Right.
Those people are paid,
Okay.
but they also are nonpartisan. They're not allowed to actually interject what their opinion is of the legislation. Their only purpose is to write it in a logical way so that your idea is presented
Correctly
reasonably well.
within.
They don't say, no, this is a stupid idea.
They may think it, but they won't say it. Right.
Look what this guy's trying to pull. Look at this one.
So my bill over the years basically has gone to legislative services. You can get, if you can get a legislator to agree with you on an idea, you can ask one of your state representatives to introduce legislation for you. That's how actually some legislation gets through, is by citizens coming up to you and asking you, hey, if you get elected, will you do this for me? Because I see an issue that I want resolved. So anyway, this went through. It went to the committee. It passed the committee. It went to the full House. It was debated, and then passed the House, and then it goes to the Senate. And in the Senate, that House bill still goes through the same process. It's assigned to a committee. The committee hears the pros and cons. They vote on it. It goes to the full Senate. They vote on it. And in this particular case, they changed a couple of words in the Senate. So it just went back today to the House for concurrence, which means the House has to agree to the changes that the Senate made.
Do you understand the frustration that people have with what you have to do to go get a bill taken care of? I mean, all the people, all the paper. Do you see the frustration that people have with government and big government because of all the paperwork and all this stuff that goes on?
I see the frustration. It's a good point, but the whole idea is any piece of legislation is supposed to be difficult to get through. It should not be, I have an idea, let's get it done.
And how long was this in the House before it was passed today? How long have you been introducing this?
This was signed off on in, if I get somewhere, it'd be the beginning of January, the end of December.
Okay.
And it just passed both chambers today.
Okay. Is that a long time?
It's not that untypical.
Okay.
It's supposed
It
to
doesn't
take
seem
a long
like a
time.
long-
It's,
a long
it-
time.
you know, you're not supposed to be able to just go in there, introduce legislation, boom, boom, boom,
Right.
it's done. Because if that were the case, you'd have a lot of bad legislation. Because
Yeah.
people had not thought it out. The public hadn't had a real good opportunity to get up and weigh in. Like this particular legislation, I do it every 2 years to get rid of affirmative action. primarily because something I saw a long time ago. I was at a place, and I was sitting around talking to people, and it was Colin Powell was on TV, and at that time he was the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And somebody said, and I overheard somebody say, well, he wouldn't be there if it wasn't for affirmative action. You're taking such a brilliant person
Right.
Yeah.
and summarizing everything he's ever achieved in his entire life by one law that is supposed to help a certain class of people.
Absolutely.
Which-
and it goes
which-
for women, and it goes for
It goes for women too.
Yep.
It
I want to make sure that's clear because a lot of people think it's just about the color of your skin.
no, it impugns the accomplishments of anybody that's a woman or a minority, and that's why I was fighting it. So and it took a lot of years to get this far. So
You mentioned every 2 years. So you've attempted this before? This specific
quite a few
legislation?
times. Yeah,
Really?
I think 3 or 4 times. Yeah.
Okay. And it's just never quite
no.
made it. Have you ever come close?
No.
No.
No. Absolutely not.
Is it almost more about the symbolism of doing it, or do you think that it does have a shot?
It's a lot to do in the House. A lot happens or does not happen depending on who your allies are, more than
Sure.
it happens on the merits of the case. In this particular case, it was an affront to the university system, who feels as though that's their mission in life, to integrate.
Right.
Okay.
Did you hear
And-
about this? Did you hear about that college that banned the Star Spangled Banner?
I did not hear
Yeah, it was
about
on
this.
Fox News today.
Really?
Yeah, college, because it makes them think about war because of
Well,
the
we don't want to
red.
hurt people's feelings.
I know we don't want to
Cheryl,
hurt
for
anyone's
Christ's
feelings.
sake.
So this college is banning the Star Spangled Banner, which doesn't
Wow.
make any. Isn't that horrible?
Do you remember where that is? Or what?
You know what? We could probably look it up.
Yeah,
But
I'm curious.
yeah, let's look it up. But yeah, so go back. Sorry about that.
Back to what?
What are you talking about?
Yeah, I got all kinds of
We
All right,
derailed
so
it.
let's go back to you are a dissenter on the right to vote.
Oh, that's back.
Or the right to work, the right to
that's
work.
forward, I think.
Yeah, we're moving
Forward
forward
to-
now. We are moving forward. You
Okay.
are a dissenter. Is that
Yes,
correct? It's back
yes,
in the
I am.
House. Do
Absolutely.
you want to tell public why?
I feel like I'm confessing to some illegitimate child or something.
Well,
You can do that, too.
I mean,
That's good ratings right there.
Right, there is, there's an article in. You sent a letter to the Concord Monitor and the Union
Yeah,
Leader,
that was something
and it
entirely
was supposed to be a joke.
Yeah, that was a
and
sarcastic.
we got a call.
We have our first call ever on the Maher Regime. Do you want me to...
Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, welcome to the Maher Regime. Who's this?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up?
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah?
I hate the whole thing about politics,
Well, you called the wrong show
Yeah,
then.
that might have been the hour before.
Well, no, it's not even that. I mean, I don't know. It's, when people start, getting a mixed idea about, Republican, Democrat.
Okay, let's stop right there. What is are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? What are you?
I'm independent.
You're an independent.
Me
Okay.
too.
All right. Okay.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm independent.
Okay. I mean,
Although I
let's
don't-
just be honest here. What?
I don't chuckle when I say it, but other than that, I'm with
Yeah,
you.
no, I'm independent.
All right.
I'm
I'm independent too.
I'm an independent woman, but I am a Republican.
No. Hold on.
Hold on.
Oh, we don't want to. Sorry, dude. Yeah, we don't want to interrupt your day.
Well, in this modern America, do you believe that women should even vote?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely.
I do too. That's huge with me. I really do. I really honestly believe that.
That's very progressive of you, very forward-thinking, and I commend you, sir.
Oh, thank you. I'm somewhat of a modern American.
So you're pro-woman. Is that what you're saying? You're pro-woman?
I'm very pro-woman.
Okay.
You can't even believe it. You can't even believe how pro-woman I am. I love women.
All right.
All right.
Anyway,
You know what?
thanks for the
We're
call.
talking to
I
Gary
really
Hopper.
appreciate it.
Thanks.
I love women too, but we'll leave you on that note.
Yeah,
Thank
we'll leave you.
All right.
Definitely a positive note to leave on.
We had some common
Okay,
ground.
so
yes.
let's go back to right to work.
Okay, right to work.
Let's talk about that.
Every 2 years, the right to work bill comes to New Hampshire, and it is something that's perpetuated by, I think it's National Right to Work Coalition. I think they're out of D.C. or Virginia. It's portrayed as a means by which people should not be forced to join a union.
And you don't agree with that?
No, because the law in New Hampshire already exists that people cannot be forced to join a union. So then you get past, if it's like an onion, you start, this is the way legislation is. You hear these bullets, people shouldn't be forced to do this. And when you really peel it back, you find out, well, they're not forced now. Okay, so then the next step is...
Wait, now?
Correct.
What do you mean now?
Correct. People are not forced to, in the state of New Hampshire, you cannot be forced to join a union currently.
Okay.
That's what the law is.
Okay.
Okay, so then you go to the next layer of that onion, and the next layer is people should not be forced to pay dues. Okay, well, you look at that argument, and what it is that people are not forced to pay dues in New Hampshire now. Currently, the way the law is that if you have 100 people in a union, and they negotiate a contract for a 5% increase, and 70 people are in the union, 30 are not, what happens is if the contract costs $100 to negotiate lawyer fees, each one will have to pay $1 for the negotiating fees. They do.
Hold on.
Sorry,
Yeah.
just hold that thought, please. I'm sorry. Hi, welcome to the Maher Regime. Who's this?
It's Rick.
Hi, Rick.
It's my brother. Hey, Rick, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. What's up?
2 questions. Am I on the air?
Yeah, you're on the air.
Absolutely. You are live.
Am I live? 2 questions. One for Cheryl. Are you a conservative or a Republican?
I'm a
Are you a Olympia Snow Rhino, or are you a conservative constitutionalist?
I am a conservative Republican.
A conservative Republican.
Yeah.
Now, I want to hear from these state reps what they're doing about the libertarian movement that's coming to New Hampshire, how they feel about that.
I'm sorry, did you guys hear Rick's question?
Yes. How do we feel about the libertarian?
How
Yes.
do you feel about the libertarian movement that's coming into your state, the petitions they're trying to do, move 10,000 people in there
Oh,
to override, to make New Hampshire basically...
the Free Staters? Yeah.
Make New Hampshire what?
Free staters.
Yeah, the Free Staters movement, the libertarians that are...
Oh, yeah, I don't care. That's a free state.
That's a very libertarian attitude, actually.
Do you feel threatened by them? Do you feel threatened by this movement that could possibly, I don't know, end your, public service career?
Well, it's not a career. It's $100 a year.
Did you hear him, Rick? It's $100 a year,
okay? $100 a year, whatever.
Right?
You're setting laws for the state, which is a power grab for one. So are you,
Rick, the Maher regime, definitely you've got the mouth on you
Anyway,
today.
I'll leave. I don't care. I'll go for it.
All right, so you just called to say hey? I hope. Okay, Gary happens to be a good friend of mine.
Cheryl, love you.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
I think he's been hanging out with the first caller.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay,
do you preclude people from calling after they've sniff glue or anyway? So
okay, so first of all, so what you're saying is that people they don't have to join a union.
Okay, currently they do not have to.
They do not have to.
Right.
Even when they go teach at school?
Correct. All they are required to do is pay their percentage of any negotiating fees for a contract because they're beneficiaries.
Why would they be required to do that if they're not joining the union?
Because they benefit from the contract. In other words, if Bill and I are in a union, and he's not a member of the union.
That's not likely.
Yeah, I know it's not likely. and I negotiate a 5% increase in our pay, and he gets that 5%. He's in New Hampshire law, he's required to pay his share of the fee to negotiate that contract.
Well, I don't agree with that.
Well, I do. That's why I vote
don't.
that way.
Yeah, all right.
I
You
think
think
it's
it's okay
reasonable.
for you to take someone else's money when they're negotiating for the school, for the union?
Correct.
But you're not a part of the union, but you still got to pay the dues.
No, that's not dues. Dues are money that the people collect for political campaigns and things like that. Those are dues.
Okay.
That's above and beyond the negotiating fee. So yes,
Bill? You want to chime in on this?
I'm over my head on this one.
Are ya? Okay. All right, so why did you dissent? Because you don't agree with, they wanted...
I'm not anti-union.
Okay.
Basically, right to work is in my way of looking at things, is an anti-union bill. And I phrase it like this because I've had a lot of people calling me because they're really angry at me because of that, because I'm a Republican voting against right to work. And I phrase it like this, that Benjamin Franklin said that if men were gentlemen, there'd be no need for government. And I carry that a step further and say that if employers were gentlemen, there'd be no need for unions. And so therefore, I am not anti-union. I'm not pro-union, but I do believe there has to be a balance. And if we castrate the unions, we will lose that balance. And
How will we lose the balance?
because if all the power is in the hands of industry, they will run politics. They do now.
I was going to say they do now, yeah. I agree with you, though.
But that's not the way the system is supposed to work,
Well, it
Gary.
may
That's
not-
not how the Constitution is set up.
It may not be
It's
the
not
way
how
it's
it is
supposed to work.
supposed to be.
Do you want to step outside?
I can take you. I can take you.
That'd be good for ratings. No, right here, right here. No outside.
No, that may not be the way it's supposed to be, but that is the way it is. I can give
Right,
you
so why-
multiple examples of this, but if I'll give you an example that hits home for me.
Okay.
Asthma spray. Okay? Asthma spray
spray.
used to be pretty inexpensive stuff until somebody lobbied and had them illegal to use the propellant they were using for asthma spray because it was quote-unquote bad for the environment. The drug companies came up with a new propellant to send that
Counteract the
medication
old- yeah.
to send that medication into your lungs that is actually quite a bit less effective than the propellant they used before. And now they got an extension of their patent. So now you can only buy that medicine from that one drug company. You can no longer buy that medication from the generic brands. Guess who do you think pushed that through Congress?
Representative Gary Hopper?
What?
You did?
No,
No.
that's federal. I'm state. But anyway,
I don't know anything about that.
Okay, I
But
know,
what does
but-
that have to do with the union?
because
really,
it has everything to do with it. Because what I'm saying is, if you eliminate that counterbalance to industry, you only have the industry influencing politics. So you need a counterbalance to it, and that's why I'm not anti-union.
You just don't believe that anyone should be forced into a union.
I don't think they should be forced into it. No,
Right.
And
absolutely not.
Right.
Well, Gary, we're going to have to agree to disagree on, or agree to disagree.
I agree to
Okay.
be disagreeable.
Yeah, that's all right. You can disagree. We can argue about it because we continue to do so.
I agree with you, Gary.
You do agree with him?
I do. I agree with Gary.
Why, are you a member of the union?
I'm not. I'm not a member of any union. But I agree with what Gary says. You don't want
Having the
industry to
balance.
have exactly. I think the
right,
balance is
all right.
important. And we have. I think this might be another family member.
That's my brother, Sean.
Hi, welcome Cheryl's brother Sean to the show. And no, actually that's a dial tone. Didn't get to it quick enough, maybe. Call us back, please, Sean.
Yeah, call back, Sean, and tell Dad I said hi because you guys are obviously all listening. So let's talk about these other.
Oh,
okay.
this is probably him. Hi, welcome to the Maher Regime.
Yeah, I just want to see if that gentleman thinks that unions have too much power.
I think it depends on the state. I think in New Hampshire,
From
which
the
is
state?
yeah, if you look at different states around the country, certain states the unions have far too much power, and the balance is disproportionately in their park. And I would probably
Can you give me an example of a state that has too much power?
whether unions have
Or
too much
where the
power.
unions have too much power?
Well, that's what the fight in Wisconsin is about, right?
Well, I don't know enough about Wisconsin, but I like Rhode Island, Massachusetts. Massachusetts, the unions have far too much power. In fact, it's the
So I'm just. This is where.
So hold on, let me finish. What states do not
have
have enough power to the unions?
enough power to the unions. I'd say, I
Right.
believe in New Hampshire currently we have a pretty good balance. Right now, the union membership is about 17% of the actual workforce in the state, and they really don't have. If you look at the hourly employees working for the state, they really don't even make that much money. Truck drivers make, I think, $16 an hour. People that work at the tolls, I don't know what it is, like 10 or 12 bucks an hour, I'm not positive.
Here's my point.
Yeah, go
The
ahead.
states that have, where unions have too much power are in financial disaster. New York, Massachusetts, all the blue states, when you have where the states don't have large union representation, they're relatively okay. I say relatively just because of the financial crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would
Well,
you,
I disagree with that hypothesis
Okay,
anyway.
give me an example. Give me an example why I disagree.
Why I disagree, because I think there are a lot more variables than specifically union participation in any one given state. Massachusetts is actually doing, in a lot of regards, is doing reasonably well. You have states like New York that aren't doing so well. Texas is doing really good.
I think the
But
point is
there's so many other variables to isolate this one and say, see, this is what causes
Look,
it. I think is
the variable is that they have these big pensions, these guaranteed contracts, that they have to pay them for life. That's the only variable. Where states are in financial crisis, like California, but have these large unions, SEIU, they're in financial collapse. The reality is these cannot be sustained.
Oh, you're just talking about specifically about the
defended.
Are you talking specifically just about the financial situation of any one given state? I mean, the government itself or the state as a whole? Like some states, their government isn't doing so hot, but their economy is actually doing reasonably well.
Okay.
but-
So, for example, California. California has a $500 billion unfunded liability to the state unions.
Yes.
And they continually
$500
vote
billion.
for leftist politicians who are going to continually to overtax and give more and more benefits. They just can't be sustained.
Okay.
it will never be. That's why we're worse off than what we were 10 years ago.
And my point, and I will bring up another point you brought up about the pharmaceutical companies. What gives you the right to tell a company who invests billions of dollars into a product to somehow say you have to hand over that patent? Who are you? That's their private property. Who are you to say that?
I'm not saying that they should, that's I think, a distortion of what I said. What I am saying
Okay,
is
that's fine.
when a company gets as large as Pfizer, for instance, it has too much political might. If you, for example, there are drug companies, for instance, in India and around the world that make very adequate drugs that could be imported to the United States. Wait, let me finish.
That's
That could be imported to the United States and lower the cost of drugs in this country. Guess who keeps that from happening? It is the drug companies who have a stranglehold on the Congress of the United States of America. Large corporations are a threat to our liberty and everything else. Small corporations
you
I
a
have no
question.
problems with.
I understand. Let me, do you believe that big unions are equally, and big environmental, these private interest groups are equally threatening to our liberty and our freedoms?
Some of them are, yes, and that's why I said in New Hampshire, which is where I am legislating, and I
that-
really
that's-
don't have anything to do with Massachusetts, California, or Dunbar, or Dublin. In New Hampshire,
All right,
I
guys,
believe
hey,
the balance
appreciate
is.
your show. Thank you.
okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Sean.
I believe that in New Hampshire, the balance is pretty reasonable. So,
Well, here's the thing. This is how I feel about any government coming into my personal space and telling me that I have to do this, or this. I was at welfare a couple weeks ago to get on Medicaid. The only way I can get on Medicaid, Gary, is if I apply for Social Security. I'm not applying for Social Security because I'm not disabled.
right.
And I'm not going to have government coming into my life and telling me what to do. So I'll just continue on my way and figure out a way to get health insurance. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I will not apply for Social Security because I happen to not have much money. So can I just get, health insurance? But guess what? I won't get it unless I apply for Social Security.
Right.
How is that, my freedom is just being completely infringed upon? It is. Because then they got me kept, don't they?
Right, but I don't.
That's how I see union. They keep you kept. They keep you kept.
Well, yeah, but that's got
They're
nothing to do
right
with.
there.
I don't see how Medicare and Social Security has that much
Yep.
to do with the union.
It
But,
has to do with everything to do with government intrusion.
okay.
So let's get to. Do you have anything else you want to add to that?
It almost sounds like I would just say I think you're talking about your larger philosophy as opposed to just
Yeah,
specifically.
that's what I'm
this is
saying. So
about
for
your-
me, when I see Republicans that are going, not getting that, we've got to get big government out. We have to. And so when we don't stick together as a party, as the right, it's just not going to happen. We keep doing these. It's about getting out all of government. That's what this is about.
Okay.
We're not a democracy. We are a republic. So when we vote people in, they're going to do whether they have their own agenda or hopefully what their constituents want. But
Not
a lot of times you
necessarily.
get up there and things change.
Yeah, well, not necessarily. We're a republic. You're a representative form of government, i.e., theoretically, the voters of Goffstown and Ware trust my judgment to make decisions when I get there, when I hear the facts plus or minus.
Right.
I mean, I question their sanity of voting for me personally, but
But it's nice of them to help you out.
Yeah,
Give
yeah.
you something to do, right?
absolutely.
I voted for you.
I know,
every
and
time.
I don't trust your judgment either.
I actually posted on Facebook today, what are we, a republic or a... Did you comment on there, Bill?
I did not.
You did not? How do I get it over there?
If you,
So what are we? Are we a republic or...
well, we're a constitutional republic,
Yes.
technically.
We are not a
Technically.
democracy.
People misunderstand what democracy means, I think. I mean, I think if we were a democracy, then it would be a direct, everything would be done by referendum, really, if we were a pure democracy.
That's actually part of the, when your brother called, that's part of the big problem with California, is much of it has been done by referendum, and referendums, unfortunately, can't be, the people can say, well, we should give everybody a raise, and then there's not a counterbalance to actually figure out how to fund it.
Right.
California's actually run into a ton of problems just by virtue of the fact that it's a referendum state.
But we're supposed to be a republic.
Yep, that's the state. The state can do what it wants.
Right.
Well, I'll just tell you.
They're very liberal.
Sean O'Keefe says we are a republic. Steve McDonald says we're supposed to be a republic. Let me go down here. Dan Canna, he is with the...
Oh, you've got a lot of comments there.
Yeah, Mike Egan, by the way, he's producing this show. Thank you very much, Mike. He wrote A Broken Republic. Oh, excuse me, Tony. Okay. A Broken Republic, he said. And he's right. The word okay, Scott Rodney, he's down, I think, in Kentucky somewhere. The word democracy is never mentioned in the Constitution. However, republic is more than once. The founders were scared to death of democracy, for it's just another form of tyranny.
Yeah, well, that's actually one of the emails that I get constantly as a state representative is to go to the quote-unquote popular vote. And that's a movement around the country right now to go to the popular vote. In other words, the popular vote would decide who is president and not the current system of the
Electoral.
electoral
Right.
college.
Yeah.
And that's what I email back to every one of them is, as soon as you do that, as soon as it's only the majority, there is not a presidential candidate in their right mind that would ever visit New Hampshire again.
True.
Because
Absolutely.
all the votes are in California, New York, and Florida.
Right.
And that means that the ultra-liberals would own the Oval Office forever. It would be done. But that's what the Founding Fathers were dead set against, was a
popular vote.
democracy, a popular vote. That's why your Senate has so much power, but it's each state has two members of that Senate
Right.
for that purpose. It's only the House that is based on population, is to try to keep that in check.
A lot of people talk about having a popular vote.
Yeah.
They want to know why. And
That's 'cause
I
they
can't
don't
remember what
understand-
president.
that's 'cause
Who was the president was running? They did they did the split screen of what the popular was. It Bill Clinton and Bush? Was that when that was?
You
I
mean
remember
when the popular vote and the electoral college didn't turn out
didn't
the
jive.
same?
Was it Clinton?
Bush Gore.
Was it Bush Gore?
Yeah.
Okay, Bush Gore. Thanks, Bill.
I found
Because Gore, in theory, won by popular vote, right? But
But it's
Right.
irrelevant.
Okay, that's
yeah,
it's irrelevant to who won.
correct.
yeah, it's a movement that crops up a lot, but it never seems to really get any traction. I don't think we'll ever see it.
I hope not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, interesting. All right, so you are. Let me just read this. This is HB 623. You have in your bill to have the Attorney General's position become an elected one.
Correct.
Is that unusual, by the way?
No, in every state. Isn't every
A
state?
lot of states
Yeah.
are. Right now, the governor appoints them.
So what is the
purpose?
the purpose of what? Why do you think it should be elected?
Because right now, the attorney, I know I'm a Republican, I shouldn't say this on the air, but I'm going to say it anyway, because that's the kind of guy I am.
Okay.
If you look at the Kelly Ayotte, when she ran for Senate, her big claim to fame was that she had prosecuted a murderer of a policeman.
Okay.
That's it. That was it. Because she's Attorney General and so subject to whatever the governor wants, there's no waves. They don't make any waves. They prosecuted a guy who killed a cop. Whoopee!
Of
course you prosecuted him.
Right. So you think,
that is absurd. That's the only thing she had to say for herself. I mean, there was tons of stuff she could have been,
But
fighting
don't you think
against.
the governor would get a backlash at that?
No.
No?
Well,
For electing the wrong, or for appointing the wrong person?
No, because right now what the Attorney General does in the state of New Hampshire is they keep their nose clean, and that's all they do.
So you think it's too politicized? By having that person be appointed by the governor, the position itself is too
It's
politicized?
too subject to what the governor does or doesn't want to do.
Okay.
If you look at the FRM thing, all the Attorney General did through the entire hearings is spend a good deal of taxpayer money explaining why it wasn't their fault.
So
In fact, if you watch the hearings, it was even worse than that. It was, we did, according to statute, everything we were supposed to do. That was one position. Then the lawyers are fun to watch because they don't have any conscience. And a little while later, they said, but if we had more money, we could have pursued this better, done a more effective job pursuing
and where are they going to
it.
get the money?
Well, no, wait, you don't understand. Either they did exactly what they were supposed to do, or they need more money to do their job better. If they need more money to do their job better, that by definition means they didn't do their job.
Correct.
Right. So
Correct.
that's all they do is spend all their time covering their tracks and making sure that they're not causing any waves. So to me, the current way the Attorney General is appointed is pointless. We need an Attorney General who's answerable to the people, not the governor.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah.
Now, is this something that you've tried before also, like the other legislation? Or is this...
No, there's a few pieces of legislation that I've repeatedly gone after. This is a
Yeah.
new one just because of some of the things I've seen, like the FRM thing and a few other things I've seen where the Attorney General, if they had even a remote vertebrae, would have gone after and done something about,
Sure.
or the people would have voted them out of office for not pursuing.
Right.
I just want to, this is what you sent me, and I love what you wrote up here. Send me back a response that I know that you got this, please. The new Facebook message system sucks.
Absolutely.
It does suck. I don't like it either. Okay, so to move on past that, let's talk about to require schools to teach intelligent design on an equal footing with evolution.
Yes.
Okay. Explain evolution, the evolution being taught in the schools now in comparison to the intellectual design.
Evolution as it's taught in schools, I can't say for sure now because I've been out of school for
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we used to learn to read and write and, it wasn't so complicated and you didn't have all these people around you all the time telling you that you're learning disabled and you need help
I know.
and, all the IEPs and everything? Wouldn't that be nice?
It was.
Yeah.
It was many, many
I'm glad I
moons.
learned to read and write, the right way and can count back change.
When I was going to school,
Right?
Yeah, I can do that too, actually.
You can?
yeah.
Good.
when I was going to school, it might be similar to what you guys learned, is that the life began, the theory was, now keep in mind that when Darwin wrote his theory of evolution, life, the smallest type of life that they knew of, say an amoeba, they believed was profoundly simple, not much more complicated than a drop of rain. Okay?
So what you're saying is that in the schools, this is what's being taught.
That's what's being taught.
Right,
The
and
life started with like an amoeba, and that evolved into a hydra, and that evolved into something more complicated, and eventually it became things started walking on land and swimming in the sea
Right.
and
I
everything
mean,
else.
my daughters were really upset. They go to Pinkerton, and they were so upset. One of them was upset because the teacher told her that Noah's Ark didn't really happen. It was one teacher.
Yeah.
And then the other, I have twin daughters.
Okay.
The other one was really upset because another teacher told her, so they must be in separate classes, told her that the Red Sea never happened. It was a tsunami. It was a tsunami.
A tsunami.
A tsunami that happened. So there you go, trying to explain what parents are teaching at home, and they're contradicting everything.
Okay, so
And they were really they came home very upset.
yeah, of course they did.
Yeah.
I remember when my daughter came home, and she wasn't upset. She's just stubborn. She said we were talking about Thanksgiving, and they were saying how well, my teacher said that we had to celebrate Thanksgiving because that's the time the Pilgrims took a day aside to thank the Indians. I said, what? What? The Pilgrims, the Christians, they were thanking God. No, that's not what my teacher said. And so I had to go through encyclopedias and everything else. And eventually she went to the teacher and said, well, I know that's the truth, honey, but we're not allowed to teach you that.
Really?
So the truth is not eligible for class anymore.
Because
but
that's what the curriculum
curriculum
is.
says,
Yes.
and that's what they're told. They can't, they've got such a bastardized version of the separation of church and state now that they don't even understand what it was.
Do you know the book by Barton, The Original Intent?
No.
Very good book. I would recommend it to anyone to read the original intent of the Constitution.
Yeah.
Great book. I have it here.
But anyway, just
good
to
book.
go off and get back to the legislation. If you take the simplest form of life, the simplest, an amoeba, it has over, I don't know how many hundreds of billions of, what do they call it? Not bits. I keep wanting to use computer
I don't do
terminology.
science, I have no idea.
No, just the genome. Okay.
We're talking energy and matter here. Is that
No,
what we're
the
talking?
genome, the center, the nucleus of that amoeba is
Okay.
like billions of characters long, so to speak. All right?
Okay.
Just the genome, not to mention the outside shell, which is made of some sort of material. It has those cellulites, that's not the right word, the hairs that are on the outside.
Cilia?
Cilia, thank you. On the outside.
Kind of smart, huh?
I'm surprised I knew that, actually. After just mumbling, I don't do science, and then I actually knew something.
You must be educated.
I was educated, yes.
Okay, good.
So you've got this thing with a form of propulsion, an outside shell, a nucleus that is so profoundly complexed, okay? Because remember, lightning hit a primordial ooze. It is so that amoeba, the simplest form of life that we know of, a one-celled creature, is so profoundly complex. Lightning striking a mud puddle, it would be just as likely that lightning struck that puddle and an F-14 popped up. But the F-14 can reproduce itself.
Okay. All right. So.
Okay, so the premise of evolution
Yep.
is absurd, and it would be wise for us to teach children that there are other theories besides the theory of evolution, and that they don't necessarily agree with evolution, and that the children, as they grow up, can realize that maybe grown-ups don't have all the answers, and that's okay, and maybe someday they will find that commonality between the two possibilities.
So you basically want to go back to how we were taught.
No, I was taught.
So
I
you
was-
think that there should be taught evolution in schools and other ways of learning?
No, I'm saying that they should spend time on evolution, because that's the current theory, and on intelligent design. In other words, we are not, the theory of evolution basically says that we are here by accident,
Right.
okay? In other words, a child getting to be about teenagers when they get self-conscious, upset, and depressed could easily surmise from the teaching of evolution that they are basically a parasite on the planet.
When I was in jail, remember I was in jail a
Yeah.
couple months ago?
Yeah.
And by the way, I was there for a cause. I wasn't there for,
Oh, okay.
I
was going to say.
All right. Anyway,
I
there was
didn't know
this
you were
girl.
hardened criminal.
There was this girl I met
She
in there.
looks good in orange, too.
Yeah, there was this.
Oh,
Yeah, there was this girl. Valley Street, as a matter of fact.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
All
okay.
right. So there was this girl in there, and they had the born-again Christian people come in every night and teach Bible classes.
Yeah.
And So there was this one girl in there, and she was such a sweetheart, and she just said to me, she goes, I didn't know that there was God. She goes, I was always taught that, what you're talking about.
Yeah,
And
that there
she,
isn't
she
anything,
wants
we're
to
just-
stay clean, and she went to a camp, I think, down in Rhode Island. She was a young girl, 21, 22 years old, but what a sweetheart. But she had been, on the streets and the whole, just a wreck of a life because of, she said, I didn't know there was a God. I had no idea.
Well,
I mean, she didn't know. So in her mind, well, what's life for?
well, exactly.
I don't
If you-
know.
If you go by the Darwinian theory of life, your only purpose is to reproduce. That's it. And if that's your only purpose, then why not, break out the booze and have a ball, because there's nothing else. If you are created, if there is a creator, if there is a designer intelligently designing you, then if there's a designer, there's a purpose. So as long as there's a purpose to your life, then at that point, kids can try to discern what that purpose is. Whether there is a God,
But-
isn't a God. But right now, they're taught that there not only isn't a God, they have no purpose in life other than the fact that they're a parasite on the planet, and the planet might be better off without them.
Well, because they've taken God out of schools, right? So they're being
Yes,
taught
but
Darwin.
I'm not advocating putting God back
I
in
know you're
school.
not. What I'm.
It's a thin line, though.
Oh.
It is a thin line.
It is.
It's a tricky-
It is.
that's
It's a tricky
Oh,
one.
yes.
balancing act
But
right there.
here's the question. Okay, this might go into your.
The liberal in me gets nervous about it.
Oh,
Do you have liberal in you?
I have
And
liberal.
you're my co-host.
I'm an independent. I have conservative in me, I have libertarian in me, and I have liberal in me. I'm all over the place.
Okay.
The
All right, well,
liberal
we're
in
gonna
me
be
is
talking
getting-
about-
is getting nervous with this whole conversation. But go ahead.
No, we're
now,
gonna-
now you know.
Okay, we are going to be talking about all kinds of stuff on
Good,
this
absolutely.
show. So,
But
that'll
if
be
you-
interesting.
If you look at some of the crap the kids are learning in school, like remember Lucy?
I love Lucy.
Lucy. Lucy was supposedly the missing link between humans.
yep.
Okay. Did you know, or did they ever take the time to explain to you that the guy who actually found Lucy had actually thought he found the missing link? So he actually used a bone saw to change the hip, because it was the hip that was the problem. Because chimpanzees have like a diagonal, because they're on all fours. Their hips are kind of more of a diagonal, whereas humans are at right angle to the
Are you saying
legs.
this is what's being taught?
No, I'm
Oh.
saying that wasn't taught, that guy actually took a bone saw and changed the bones on that specimen to make it, because he believed it was the missing link.
Right.
Okay, so they're being taught false things in school all the time. So my bill is to try to get them to be taught the truth and let them decide for themselves.
But
I
then-
think
well,
kids are
let's-
intelligent and can figure it out.
I'm on your side, Gary. Okay. I'm
That
on your
scares
side, but
me,
I'm
Cheryl.
gonna.
That's really
I know,
scary.
I know, but seriously,
I think it's sweet.
shouldn't the parents be teaching their children about not evolution?
Well, right now, I think
Do you
the
see what
parents.
I'm
I think
saying?
the
I mean-
parents absolutely should be. However, right now,
But we can't make. You can't make anyone do that, Gary.
however, right now, because of overspending in Concord and everywhere else, and basically in the federal government, people have so little money. They're working all the time. They don't have time to teach their kids how to, potty train them. So yes, they should be, but I think we've
So,
pushed our parents as far away from their own children as we can with just by the growth and scope of government and other
absolutely,
laws.
that's the problem.
Is it your position? I just want to be clear that intelligent design should be taught
Yes.
along with evolution.
Correct.
My again, this is the liberal in me, but I've sort of a practical question though about teaching intelligent design. How do you? I don't have a problem with it being mentioned,
Right.
but how do you literally teach it? What is there to teach? I mean, if you believe in intelligent design, then you believe that our being here, we were created by God, or some people believe both. Some people believe that evolution happened, but it was God's guiding hand. Sort of a combination. How do you teach that? I mean, isn't that a simple one or two sentences? Maybe we're here because of God. Maybe we're not. I mean, how do you
No.
How do you base a curriculum on that?
You base a curriculum.
Well, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, you base a curriculum on a lot of things that we do know that are contrary to what's being taught now.
Okay.
So in other words, evolution says this, but the fact of the matter is that can't be supported in science. For instance,
But it's all theory, including God. I mean, I hate to say it, but
You're right.
you can't prove to me that
no,
God put
I'm
us
not.
here
I'm
either.
not.
So.
That's not my point. My point is not to prove anything.
Right.
My point is to prove that evolution is not the only theory,
Right.
but there are other theories as to how we got here, and those have
Validity
should
as well.
should have validity and an equal time at the table.
Right.
A quick example is we were taught through school that all horses descended from something else a long, long time ago, millions and millions and billions of years ago, and it split off. And they remember that tree they showed you, where it started out as some amorphous creature, and that turned into dogs and horses and. Okay, you remember?
We didn't have the tree yet.
No,
I went to a Catholic school. We didn't have
Okay,
the
so you didn't have that.
trees.
In public
went to a
school.
Catholic school.
In public school, we had trees.
Okay.
So.
I don't
have-
remember the tree.
Yeah, they had this kind of weird animal that some of them descendants ended up as horses, and some ended
Have
up
you ever
as
researched your family tree?
no, not that family tree.
Oh, okay.
Haven't gone that far.
I'm just
back.
throwing you off a little bit,
Yeah,
Gary.
thank you. But when you look at that,
Throwing them off.
when you look at that tree, you see horses, and there's tons of bones and things that they can find from that horse. But if the theory of evolution was really correct, there would be far more, million times more evidence of the gradual change from something to something else. But there isn't. There are no bones in between that horse and what it may or may not have started out as. So the entire theory of evolution is built on a lot of bogus information. And so if you can start teaching children that, and teaching children that
Why don't we just teach the kids about, reading and writing and counting back change? I mean, that just seems so simple to
And
me. But
civics.
And it's
Civics. Teach them civics.
history.
Yeah.
right. Teach them. Why aren't we teaching, civics? I mean, that stuff shouldn't even. It just seems like a real waste of time.
Whoa,
When
wait, whoa,
really,
whoa.
what's happening? It is.
We shouldn't teach
it is-
science?
Is that science?
That's supposed to
because
be,
me,
yeah.
it's all theory. If it's not
Well, a lot-
scientific,
lot of-
lot of
lots of
science
then
science
that's
is
A
theory.
lot of science is theory. A lot of science, when I was going to school, light didn't have mass, and now I guess it does.
But
But that was a theory.
I really just think, Gary, that we have to get back to the basics.
Yep.
And if we don't get back to the basics, it's just going to continue to get worse.
Well, actually, that brings me to one of my other bills.
Okay, well, we've got exactly how many minutes left?
Well, 6, but maybe a little less. I'm not sure what time.
Well,
Okay.
Joe says 5.
5. Okay, so I want to say, I wrote on the Facebook, should the Attorney General be appointed or elected? Raz wrote, Raz is from South Carolina, is that where he's at?
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yeah,
Some should be fired, he wrote. And then, yeah, sure. He's a good guy. And then Michael, he's a chef. He wrote, either way, there will be plenty of people to bitch about whoever it is. Wink. He did a wink.
Oh, good.
So,
good.
yeah.
Hey,
He's more down the middle like you, too. He's
Really?
independent.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
independent. So,
That some should be fired comment, though, raises a question in my mind. If we elect the Attorney General instead of appointing the Attorney General,
Oh,
you
you can still get rid of him.
you can still fire,
Yeah,
even if
we can
elected?
impeach the governor, and he's elected.
Okay. But it's more complicated than simply firing someone.
Yeah, and it would have to be pretty extreme, too.
Yeah.
It should be.
Yeah. Okay.
you can just fire him. The governor can fire him.
Not too easily, I don't think. I'm not sure how. I'd have to look into it to find out what that process. I don't remember it ever happening, and probably should have.
Okay. Well, we've got a couple minutes, so if you want to, Bill, we didn't get much.
Closing
out of you,
remarks?
right? Yep, we're just for support for Gary. Is that what it is? Just-
No.
You're a little far from your mic, Bill. I'm just concerned people can't hear you.
I interjected the part on teaching civics. In my experience being town government in Goffstown in various positions, and running for selectman 3 times over there, a wonderful experience. I think everybody should run for office at least once.
Everyone?
Everyone.
Everyone on the planet?
Everyone.
Everyone in the
Everyone.
United States?
Be a waste of time for me.
I'm unelectable.
The biggest impression I got was the huge lack of knowledge of how the system works, i.e.
Yes.
civics.
Yep.
I mean, civics is basically the study of government.
Government.
And people had no clue. No clue on the town, no clue on the school, no clue on the county, state, federal level, all across the board.
Yep.
And it is a fascinating study.
I want to give you an example. Oh, can I?
Certainly.
Okay,
Go
I
for
used
it.
to go to this hairdresser named Costa, and he's Greek, and he's down in Salem, New Hampshire, and he's awesome, and his wife Diane, love him to pieces. Anyway, I went there a lot, and I went in there one day, he's like, Shadow, I'm going to become an American citizen. I said, you are? That's awesome. So he had been taking the exams and studying it up and everything, and I sat in his chair, and he asked me, well, how many senators are there? And I said, 100. And then he said, how many, or what's the branches of government? He's asking me, and I'm answering his questions because my dad taught me, and that's what I learned in school. This is how the branches of government work. He spun my chair around, and he looks at me and goes, Shadow, I got to tell you something. He said, I have been asking all my clients those exact same questions. A lot of them, none of them knew but you. And he'd been asking for about a month or so, just different, all his clients. They
that's
had
sad.
no idea how many senators, how many House reps, I mean, no idea how
I'm
it
not
worked.
surprised, unfortunately.
And I was like, really? He goes, I'm going to be a citizen, and most people don't even know how it works. But he was so excited, and he did get, became a citizen of the United
Good.
States, which is
Good for him.
fabulous.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to share that
the-
because I think that if you don't know, how can you make an informed decision of who you vote for?
Well, that and
We gotta start to wrap up
how
in a second.
can you tell when an elected official or an appointed official is doing their job
Right.
or just shoveling a bunch of crap down your throat?
Case in point. Good. All right, so we got to.
When they have
We
a
gotta-
shovel.
We gotta wrap.
All right, we got to wrap. We'll be here every Wednesday, 6 o'clock. I'm going to have different representatives. We're going to talk about different issues. We're going to talk about autism. We're going to talk about women's issues. We're going to talk about everything every
Good.
Wednesday night, 6 o'clock. So,
Thank you for
have a
inviting
great
me.
night.
Thank you for inviting me
oh,
to do
and
this
you know
show.
what,
I
Matt?
appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much.
Absolutely.
I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad
This is
that.
great.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you
Thank
very much
you.
for
Thank
coming.
you, Cheryl.
Thank you for coming.